Hello and welcome to the program. We're coming to you today from the Binational Innovation Conference 2014, occurring at the Technology Center of South Texas College, which coincidentally happens to be in the McAllen Free Trade Zone. We've got all kinds of employers all around this technology center. They get educated here and go right to work. On the program, we have M. Max Isaguirre, who's the president of the Aguirre Group in Austin. Max, welcome to the program. Now,
Thank you.
Now, you're the featured speaker today. You're the guy with the hostess with the mostest, because you're going to tell everybody exactly what's going to happen with the 8 times what Eagle Ford Shale has done, and that's $61 billion. That's supposed to occur just on the otro lado del rio, the Rio Bravo, over there in Tamaulipas and Nuevo Leon, with all the opening up of the petro industry of Pemex in the country of Mexico. 2.5 million jobs, I think, could be created. A lot of them U.S. people, I guess, will go over and working, but I may be getting into your business a little bit. Tell the audience exactly what can be expected, not only by the country and the state of Texas, but the region, I guess, but let's say Laredo, Victoria, Corpus Christi, Brownsville South, to, I guess, Veracruz and Monterrey, perhaps.
Sure, be happy to. And it's not that energy investments couldn't be made in Mexico before the reform. I've been involved in several large energy transactions in Mexico, but they were very difficult under the prior framework. And it was very important that they go ahead and adopt the reforms that they did, not just energy, but all of the other structural reforms, which I think took great political courage on the part of the president, because a lot of these issues, especially energy, are rather emotionally charged. But with this reform, and I'm very optimistic that it is going to be successful, I think Mexico is going to see an increased flow in foreign direct investment, GDP growth, and basically just a lot more prosperity for its citizens. Along the border, according to BBVA research, which I think does a great job of analyzing a lot of these issues, the border area.
They've been involved with Mexico banking for decades, and now they're in the United States, right?
Yes,
yeah.
And I'm actually on their board of directors, I should say, in the interest of
Glenn Roney, our friend.
Full disclosure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Glenn and I are on the board together, and the BBVA Research Economic Team estimates that there's going to be about $1.2 trillion of economic activity along the border, on both sides of the border, that will definitely benefit border towns here in Texas.
Yeah, imagine.
To say the least. And
you said T with a trillion, not B with even a billion.
No, that's T is a trillion, and with the long shared border that Texas has with Mexico and the location of a lot of the oil and gas reserves, I think Texas will benefit more. The Texas border area will benefit more than the remainder of the border with Mexico. In Texas, I think, again, according to some of the research that BBVA has done, there's an expectation of 200,000 jobs in Texas, $45 billion of GDP growth stemming from Mexico energy reform, and I think they had about $3.5 billion in state revenues. So a lot of positive change that should occur. I think that with the wave of investment that's expected, it would not be hard to imagine that a lot of companies, both U.S. and international, might want to locate here in this area and be able to basically serve both the Eagle Ford shale play, which is full bore on, and hopefully that's a gift that keeps giving for Texas, as well as Mexico. And so that's one of many areas where that could really cause, I think, significant benefit for the border region. Beyond that, everybody focuses on the oil and gas reform in Mexico, and it is historic. It is very strategic, but Mexico is also opening up their electric sector in a way that is equally game-changing, in my view. So there are going to be a lot of opportunities to invest in the electric market as well. I think we're located here today at South Texas College, and they're a great example of being proactive, and they've gone out and struck a couple of agreements with different learning institutions in Mexico to start to prepare the next wave of young people that can work in the industry and start to build their career, which could be a great career given the opportunities both north and south in energy. And then beyond energy, I think that generalities are always sort of dangerous or whatever, but in very general terms, there's development along the border in Mexico, and then there's certainly mega development in Monterrey and Saltillo. But in the middle, there's certainly development there, but on a relative basis, it's underinvested. And so outside of energy, there's going to be a need for road infrastructure, which, as we've seen in Texas, can be a bit of a challenge, at least in terms of maintenance. They need to put in more roads and maintain them.
Well, roads in Eagle Ford Shale be converted to gravel from 55 to 30 mile an hour because they can't maintain them. There's just too much traffic.
Well, I think that it has been a challenge. Certainly, the state is doing a better job. I was just down in the Carrizo Springs area recently, and that road from Dilley to Carrizo Springs is being maintained better than certainly the last time I was on it. But it is an ongoing challenge. Beyond roads, there's going to be a need for worker housing, whether that's hotels, dorms, trailers, whatever it is, for this influx of workers. You're going to need worker transportation, perhaps including security. You're going to need, how are people going to eat? Grocery stores, restaurants, medical facilities are going to be critical. So I think that there's going to be a lot of opportunity for investment and career building, not just in energy, but in unrelated fields that happen to be closely linked to the energy investment that's going to need to go in. I think in Eagle Ford, Ron, the rule of thumb is generally that for every one direct job that's created from unconventional shale, there are 4 indirect jobs that are created. So it gives you an idea of the multiplier effect that can happen.
That's in the employment side.
Yes.
Wow. Growing up in Brownsville, myself growing up in the McAllen San Juan area, you and I are both aware of the thing called Mordida. You talked about the fact it was hard to do business with Pemex in the past. Part of that was the payoff aspect of doing a contract with Pemex. And the president, in his opening up of the industry now to outside involvement, has he dealt with that issue where U.S. companies are not going to be expected to pay Mordida to get a contract or some kind of a deal with Pemex?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, going
He must
forward,
has to have done that, otherwise it would continue to plight the situation.
Yeah, no, it would not succeed because, of course, most U.S. companies, if not all, are subject to the U.S. Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, and
Can't do
so
it.
they cannot participate
Yeah, they go to
in
jail.
that sort of activity. But I think that the institutions that are going to be responsible for the sector are certainly going to have to show their commitment to transparency. I'm optimistic that they will, and I'm optimistic that there's going to be investment not only from the U.S. but truly all over the world in the Mexican energy sector.
When we return, our guest is going to tell you and I exactly what to expect if you have to be a resident or a business person or a student or a grandparent or parent of a potential student who needs to get trained up to get these jobs that are going to be coming down the pike here. And we're going to get him to explain somewhat how you need to be involved, especially in your community colleges where you might particularly live. When our program continues, so stay tuned. Welcome back to the program. Coming to you from the Binational Innovation Conference 2014, all at the Technology Center of South Texas Community College. That's the former name. South Texas College, what it's called now. And it's at the McAllen Free Trade Zone, where all kinds of international things are happening. But our guest today, Max Isaguirre. Max, tell the audience more about what's going to happen, in particular, if the Obama administration finally approves one of these LNG applications, either at the Port of Brownsville or at the Port of Corpus Christi to take this natural gas coming out of Eagle Ford and from the Burgos Basin, takes that and compresses it 600 times, puts it on a ship, sends it over to Europe. They put it back together again as natural gas, and then they sell it, and they take away some of the power of our friend, Mr. Putin. Now, I talked to the senator for Texas, Senior Senator John Cornyn, about why these applications aren't being granted, what he can do to get them granted. If Senator Cornyn and Senator Cruz can get these applications granted, and one of these $7 billion plants is built, that's $7 billion in jobs predominantly that'll happen just almost overnight. What's going to be the impact of Corpus Christi around the port and Brownsville if and when one of those applications gets granted sooner rather than later?
In terms of immediate activity around the port, it could be huge, and I am hopeful that it will be easier for our country to export hydrocarbons. If you really think about what happened, I think that the U.S., Canada, and now Mexico, as a result of its energy reform, are in a position to really become the masters of their energy destiny. And the reason I say that is just last year, the EIA came out and said that there's 6 countries in the world that control 2/3 of the shale gas in the world. 3 of those countries are the U.S., Canada, and Mexico.
Wow.
So our continent is very well positioned to be the masters of our own destiny. As you alluded to, Ron, right now, or not really right now, but certainly over the course of the last decade, we were highly dependent upon politically volatile regions, places in the world that certainly did not have our best interest in mind.
The Middle East.
The Middle East,
Yeah.
and you mentioned
Primary.
Mr. Putin. I'm not sure he's been our biggest friend either. And the shale gas revolution has really just changed that. Shale oil and gas production has changed the energy landscape of our country and has put us in the fortunate position where we are talking about exports because we're covering more and more of our domestic demand, which is fabulous. I think that, it's difficult to have multiple LNG export facilities coexisting at different ports. So I think what's more likely is that, you should
You're
see
gonna have one and one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
One here in Brownsville, hopefully, one in Corpus, and so on and so forth. And it will be certainly a huge boon for our energy industry in this country, and more importantly, politically, we'll be less reliant on those regions. I am a big fan. As a former energy regulator, I was chairman of the Texas Public Utility Commission longer ago than I care to believe, almost a dozen years ago. But as a former energy regulator, I'm a huge supporter of what's called an all-of-the-above energy strategy. I think that we should generate every electron of electricity and every molecule of gas that we can from domestic sources and lessen the dependence even more on those more politically volatile areas of the world. But we have great friends in terms of Mexico and Canada, and they supply a lot of our energy needs as well. I think Mexico will now do so in a bigger way. This energy reform will bring in more investment than you've seen in 75 years in Mexico. Oil production has been decreasing, refining capacity's down. I think a lot of that's going to change, and North America is going to benefit from that.
Tell the audience what impact all of this is going to have on them. This audience predominantly in Laredo, Corpus, Victoria, Brownsville, in the Rio Grande Valley. How can it impact on them and their family and their children in particular? And what can they do to not only get ready for it, but get what they can out of all this change, this overnight revolution, basically?
Well, I think that with the 1.2 trillion in economic activity along the border, that's certainly going to be hopefully a rising tide that lifts all ships. I do think that for those that are specifically interested in energy opportunities in this area, let's just say, whether that's north because of Eagle Ford or south because of Mexico, there's going to be opportunity for a long time, but in terms of the immediate opportunity, I think the time to move is now. If you wait 5 years for things to become crystal clear. I think those that have moved sooner, the first movers, will have a huge head start. So whether you're thinking about a traditional job, or you're thinking about starting a company and participating as an entrepreneur in Mexico, you need to start doing your networking, start learning about the opportunities, start preparing yourself with the necessary skills, because there will be a big opportunity that results from the energy reform, and we're in the heart of it.
And if you're going to do business in Mexico, you better understand camaraderie, spirit of crow, working together and so forth. There used to be a discussion about the Japanese would fly in with their Mitsubishi, they'd have a big giant stack of contracts to sign, and they never get the deal because they didn't understand that they had to go out, had to have a little socialization, family and a family, mano a mano, and get a little more intimate with the Mexican culture in order to be able to do business in Mexico. So that's, first of all, you better understand conversational Spanish and maybe know how to read and write a little bit of Spanish, or have at least somebody go with you when you go over there and try to do a deal. I mean, that's kind of the first thing. We're going to talk a little bit more about this with Max Yzaguirre and the emerging, involving revolution that's taking place in greater South Texas and northern Mexico when this program continues, so stay tuned. Welcome back to our conversation with Max Yzaguirre, coming to you from the Binational Innovation Conference at Texas Southmost College's Technology Center. Max, community college is represented by all the students that we see here behind us. That's got to be the first thing that we've got to do to get involved in this $1.7 trillion in economic activity the BBVA Compass says is going to happen along the border region. Get our people ready to take advantage of these jobs that are going to be, and they've got to be trained up. Either Mexico coming over to get trained, and that's going to happen to this college and other community colleges, and or our own people getting trained up here to get the jobs and take those jobs in Mexico. Yes?
Absolutely. I think South Texas College is a great example of proactive thinking. They've already struck 2 agreements with learning institutions in Mexico, and I understand that several more are in the works. The president of Mexico has said that he'd like to see a National Petroleum University. As I understand it, I think that's a virtual concept, a network of learning institutions, but certainly schools like South Texas College can play a great role there, because one of the many benefits that Mexico was hoping to achieve from its energy reform was technology transfer. We have that technology here in Texas. We know how to drill in Eagleford, how to extract from the source rock, which has been this big revolution, that you can now extract hydrocarbons straight from the source rock through hydraulic fracturing or fracking. That's a big deal, and we do have that technology, and I think they're looking for that technology transfer. So students that prepare themselves in science, technology, engineering, math, a lot of the more technical skills, I think, are going to find a lot of opportunities in Mexico, and it's great to see schools like South Texas College be proactive and go out there and form these formal arrangements, because I think it's going to give its students a great entree, just great information, human networks. I mean, you get to know people. Like you were saying earlier, it's not only important that we understand how to extract from Eagleford, which we certainly do as a state, but we also have an understanding of Mexican business and social culture, and that is very important, and I think will be a differentiator or an advantage for people from this area that have both the technical skills as well as the people skills and the awareness to build a career that benefits from energy, whether it's, again, Eagleford or Mexican energy reform.
Probably the most important thing is to understand and be conversant in Spanish.
Por supuesto.
More than anything else.
No, that certainly does not hurt, because I've found over the course of my career that a lot of the professionals that I deal with certainly speak English. In many cases, they've been educated in either the U.S. or another country in addition to Mexico, but when you go out for dinner or breakfast or, whatever the case may be, and you build those human bonds, it certainly helps to be able to talk to somebody in their native language. They've been speaking English all day. I think they're a little bit tired, and welcome the opportunity to switch over.
Having been born and raised in Brownsville, that helps. Born and raised, in my case, in San Juan, near McAllen, same también. It gives you just a little leg up on being able to interface and engage and take advantage of this economic boom that's getting ready to involve and embrace this particular area. Just phenomenal. What's Brownsville going to look like in 5 years, in your opinion, with the Port of Brownsville, with the SpaceX and everything that's happening?
It's such a step change. I think Brownsville is going to change dramatically. You've got the intrastate highway, I-69, SpaceX, as you mentioned, the University of Texas.
You got the Mexican highway from Pacific to the Atlantic.
Yeah, it's really
Mazatlan to Matamoros.
Yeah, I think that's just going to be revolutionary, and
Unbelievable.
And the change is going to be so good, and again, rising tide that lifts all ships.
So you'll have seen the valley, and Brownsville in particular, go from agriculture to maquiladoras, international marketing, manufacturing, and now we're going to be like the Saudi Arabia of the world, somewhat. So we're going to wrap it up in a moment with our speaker here for the Binational Innovation Conference when our program continues. So stay tuned. Welcome back to the Binational Innovation Conference taking place at the Technology Center, South Texas College. That's where we are. Our guest speaker here at noon today, Max Yzaguirre, born in Brownsville, been ringing out of the Rio Grande since he was a pup, and he's going to tell you and I as we go out the door here. Tell the audience what I didn't get out of you in the last 3 segments that maybe that they need to know about what's going to happen. This is just it's an amazing time, and I look forward to what's going to happen in South Texas and northern Mexico, Max.
No, I think you covered everything really, Ron, but just to reiterate some of the key points, the opportunity is real. I'm highly optimistic that it's going to succeed. The
The only
president.
thing that scares me is that Austin can mess it up and Washington, D.C. can mess it up, and the Distrito Federal can mess it up, as we've seen happen historically. Both capitals of the United States and Mexico can, if you don't watch them and tell them, and even if you do that, they'll still figure out a way to mess it up.
Yeah, well, I think Austin does a pretty good job, as we've seen with the Texas economic boom, but I think the lesson learned is the government's role is to put the right framework in place, make sure that the right safety net is in place in terms of regulation, but then step aside and let the private sector and innovation take hold, and let people figure out how to make the most out of the opportunity. And I'm very optimistic that Mexico is going to try to do that. They've patterned a lot of their energy reform on our markets. If you look at what they're doing in electricity, very similar to what we did in ERCOT here in Texas. And I do think that that's a point well taken. And so far, the government of Mexico has done a fabulous job of putting these structural reforms in place, building this framework. It still has some work that it needs to do, building out the regulations, that sort of thing. But there will be a time to let the private sector and innovation take hold and let people do what they've done here with the shale gas revolution.
Max, I've noticed through the years, numerous times, the Mexican capital will make a change of how you're going to have to put a sticker on your car, and they're going to impose it on X day certain at the ports of entry in Matamoros or Reynosa, McAllen, and they do it, and the economy blows up and it doesn't work, and they go, forget it. It was a bad idea. Mexico sees how to understand when they do something regulation-wise it doesn't work, and they stop it, where our country doesn't. Once Washington, D.C. says we're going to do it this way, they ain't going to back up, and they're going to continue to make things worse. That's what bothers me.
Well, I think that
Concerns me.
yeah, well, and with reason. I certainly think no government has a monopoly on mistakes or bad ideas, but it is important that when something is recognized not to be working, to change.
Yeah.
And I do think if you look at this particular president, Peña Nieto, I mean, in his State of the Union address earlier this month, he made it clear that he's got a 6-year term, framework's been put in place, now it's time to execute. And I think he's got the right mindset and the right political skills to get that done. But you're right, there will be bumps in the road, and the important thing is to see how they bounce back from those.
Max Aguirre, thank you so much for
Yes, sir.
participating in our telecast and informing the public exactly what's going to happen in your best guesstimation with your help of being on the board of BBVA Compass, my bank in particular, by the way.
Good.
Thank you for joining us. Go to ronwhitlockreports.com. You can go to Max Aguirre's website if you want to know more about what he has done and what he's continuing to do and what he might be able to do for you. Thank you for joining us. Till next time, adios.